is taking a look at some of the technologies that we will be using to build the NGLMS. So this is just a quick walkthrough of the tech stack for the application, which will consist of a front end and an API. For our API, we are using Python, the latest version of Python, which is of this recording 3.8. We're using Falcon, which is a web framework built with Python that we're going to be using to build out the API. We're going to be using Gunicorn or Guncorn, I'm not sure the pronunciation, as our web server, and that's going to allow us to build our API. We are using for the front end Angular 9, NGXS for state management, and we're going to be using ng Bootstrap, which is component library for Angular built on top of Bootstrap. So we're just going to take a quick look at some of the code, but this is not in-depth video, so we're just going to take a quick look at some of the code for the API and just give a little explainer about what's going on. So this is our API. We have two folders, a root folder and a data folder. This data folder is temporary because the application is currently not connected to any kind of database. So we created this data folder with the information that we'll be serving to the front end, which is just some mock data that I came up with, some client data and some lease data. These are not comprehensive or a representation of the information in the system and should not be taken as such. This is just some mock data that I generated for the purposes of demonstrating the capabilities of the API. We have a root folder which houses our resources. So we have a client resource, a lease resource, and then we have a root file which houses the main API functionality. This is where you load your resources, or should I say routes, where you have your default routes. You disable cores and set up which front ends can make calls to the back end and so forth. There's not a lot of security or anything on this right now. It's just kind of open so that I could test. So that's running. I'm using Postman to test the API. Right? Those of you who are familiar with building APIs will be familiar with Postman. So I'm not going to go into that too much. And then we're just going to have a look at the front end. At the front end, here we have our application. We have clients and leases. This information is provided by the API on the startup of the application. As you click into client or click into leases, it makes a backend call and then loads the data into state management. From that point on, the data is loaded into the state management and all the manipulation is done in the front end. I've built a simple filter for leases where you could filter by lease number. And when you select a lease, the information shows up in the component. So that information is dynamically loaded as you select different leases, as you see the information will change. And that goes the same thing for the client, except in the case of the client, I am merging the first name and the last name. So you could search by first name or last name across the two fields. So this about it for the front end. I'm going to include the links to the different technologies that we're using to build out this application in the video below. Sorry, below the video. And that's about it. Thank you for listening. And more videos will follow regarding this application and of a more specific nature as to how to do certain things, like, build the filter and how the records get loaded into the component, routing, and so forth as necessary, right? And also videos on the back end. Thank you very much.